Hey, yeah.
Episode whatever it is.
We should probably just stop saying that now.
I know, but it feels like an organic thing to sort of
Mm,
start with. But
yeah, we're shooting
hey
ourselves in the
guys,
foot.
this is Style Over Substance. What
Yeah,
up? Um, how are you, Mim?
yeah, I'm all right actually, not bad. I have decided I'm giving myself this weekend to officially finish my cross stitch. Yeah, like I need to finish it because
Ooh.
I have
You've
an
been discussing this cross stitch
I
since
know.
potentially like episode 2.
Oh God, yeah, I've been talking about
Yeah,
it since the summer.
yeah.
I have an idea for a big old painting that I want to do, but I
Mm.
can't start something else before I finish the last thing. That's
Yeah.
like the key to getting anything done, really.
Well, because then you'll have
So,
loads of like odds and ends to like
mhm.
wrap up. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't like that. I've spent so much time on this cross stitch and dedicated so much back pain,
You
and
need to
I
like
need
get
to
it in a
finish it.
frame or
Oh,
something.
I've bought the frame. That's the thing. I've had this frame for weeks, honestly.
Wow, that was
Um,
presumptuous.
Yeah, because I thought the end was nigh, but alas.
But you know what? You do need motivation. I am so close
Mm,
to finishing a jumper for my nephew that I'm knitting,
mm.
and I'm just putting it off. And I was like, I've got plenty of time. We're now less than a week till Christmas, and like these things take time and you don't want to be rushing.
Is it his
So
Christmas gift?
it is, yeah. I
Okay.
knitted a little cardie for one nephew,
Hmm.
and I'm knitting a jumper with a teddy bear's face on it, like just a little like,
Wow.
as in just like a little like eyes and a little nose, nothing
Nice.
like
Mm.
ridiculously intricate. Um, but yeah, it currently is sleeveless on one side, so
Oh, okay.
I need to do
Yeah.
the sleeve.
I think I've just been distracted with other things, but oh well, it will get done. I believe. We will knit that sleeve and we will finish that
Yeah,
cross stitch.
got to get done.
Such
Yeah.
granny activities.
I know, but whenever like I say stuff like that to people,
Mm.
like we had a Zoom with our school friends the other day, and I can't remember I said something. They're like, "Yeah, but that's because you're like old at heart," and I was just like, "Yeah, I am,"
Yeah. People have to understand you.
and they do, and they do. Oh man, right. Well, this week we're discussing the fashion shows we alluded to last week,
Hmm.
but before that, what's your
Yeah.
fashion story, Mim? Or should
Okay.
I say, just in case people miss it, your fashion story?
Okay, so my fashion story is De Beers has raised their diamond prices for the first time since the beginning of this pandemic, and prices have increased by 2 to 3%.
And that's
In
quite significant when you're already starting with
mm,
significantly priced products.
yeah, exactly. And for those of you who don't know, I think we should probably do an episode about diamonds and things.
They are a
But
girl's best friend.
yeah, and it's something that we see year after year, season after season on these red carpets, and they're
Mm,
like an essential part of the look.
Lorraine
um
Schwartz.
oh God, I was took the words right out of my mouth.
She's like besties with all celebrities.
Yeah. But De Beers, basically, they own, essentially for many years, a monopoly on diamond mines and diamond stocks, and so they were able to really to kind of name their price on the value of diamonds. Now, there's like lots of diamonds in like being mined in Russia and other places that people don't really think of. But this whole discussion, I think there's so much to talk about, because the idea that diamonds are marketed as such a rare stone is not true. Like, the earth is made out of carbon for the most
Mm.
part, and so it's really common sort of substance. But anyway, saw this headline, and it kind of reminds me of a few months ago, like my sister, my mum, and I were in a group chat, and we were talking about, would you mind getting a synthetic diamond as a engagement ring?
I already know your mother's response.
Yeah, my mum comes from a time before synthetic diamonds were really a big thing,
And it's
but
also not a bad thing
it's
to
not.
want a real diamond.
My mum's not actually that snobby.
No. She has good taste.
She does have synthetic diamonds. She probably won't want me to say this on, but she does. But that's not
Some
like,
cubic zirconia.
well, there's cubic zirconia, and there's like actual simulated, like the way
Yeah.
they put in carbon in the machine and whatever. And it's really actually a good option if you want to wear diamonds, but you don't want to be scared of like losing it. Or people don't realize all these lot who have like crazy jewelry collections have to get insurance big enough to cover this stuff. But my question to you is, what's your thoughts on synthetic diamonds as engagement rings?
So can I sort of avoid the question with, I've always thought that I would have an antique ring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
you can.
I've always I don't think I'd be against synthetic. And you know when you see these shows like 90 Day Fiance or like
Say yes to the dress and all
all of
that
these
stuff.
things, and you see these like crazy big rings, and you're like, you know what? That could be Swarovski for all I know, because I don't know much about diamonds.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, I'd want a certificate, but like, I'm not super precious about stuff like that. I don't actually like shiny things on myself, so that's probably where that comes from. But I've always thought that I would want an antique ring, because you can get some large diamonds for cheaper, and I kind of like that idea.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Same. I think antique rings are
They're
like
more
really beautiful
interesting.
options. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when you look at like Tiffany, I don't know if you've ever like gone into a store, these very big name jewelers, you just browse and you look at the prices, and the prices are crazy, but you look at the design, and for some people they're nice. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
knocking it, but I just think, I'm pretty sure you could go down to like Hatton Garden in London, or these other like diamond districts across the world, or like, these gold districts in like places in the Middle East, and get something that's really nice for a lot cheaper. And yeah, it's a really big discussion.
It is. Yeah, it'd be interesting to hear or talk about it more, and potentially even do sort of like a sort of quiz or questionnaire or whatever it is, a poll. That's what I'm thinking of, with like our friends, to be like, what are your thoughts? But yeah, how interesting. So it was better to buy an engagement ring at the start of this year. So
Yeah, that was the moral of the story. So what's your fashion story?
So my fashion story is there is a new documentary out about Audrey Hepburn.
Oh.
And of course she is one of the ultimate style icons of the last 100 years.
Century.
Last century. Sort of her and Marilyn were, I guess, the two women that lots of people looked up to for a significant amount of time. You were either a Marilyn girl or an Audrey girl.
Yeah, they're complete like opposites, aren't they?
Yeah, it's a bit like, I don't know if you remember when we grew up, you were either a Clooney or a Pitt fan. Like it was like you kind of were meant to fancy one or the other.
Yeah, I definitely think I'm definitely a Marilyn fan, and I think you're definitely more of an Audrey Hepburn fan.
It's difficult because I've watched quite a lot of things and documentaries about Marilyn, and I'm really fascinated about the fact that she was clearly like really talented, but kind of also didn't want, like, she had a real conflict of her life. But I do like Audrey Hepburn, mainly for I love Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's a documentary out about her life and her style. as well as all other things. But
I've definitely watched that because, as I say, I'm far more of a Marilyn fan. I love that old Hollywood glamour.
yeah,
And I just thought that she was a very witty actress.
yeah.
She played the bimbo and the quick jokes and things really well. So I've always kind of liked that about Marilyn. And I've always recognised that I don't really know that much about Hepburn, really. And I've never fully understood her appeal as an actress, partly because I haven't seen her films, like I think Roman Holiday and things, the most famous one. And I've always found her as a style icon, maybe a bit on the more boring side, but that's just a personal preference to me. I quite like exuberant people, characters. And so I would definitely watch this documentary, actually. I think maybe I'd have a newfound appreciation for her, or just more of an understanding of her as a person. I know that she started, wasn't she like a refugee or something?
Yeah,
she
came from Belgium during, or she was in Belgium during the Second World War. And yeah, so like, I think she had quite an unusual sort of rise to stardom, but so do most people, you know, like you never hear of somebody like, yeah, I just was really wealthy. I lived in LA, went for an audition. Like you very rarely hear that story, especially for like huge megastars. There's normally some rags to riches, which she has.
Yeah, you know, this is so random, but the rags to riches like interesting story thing is just reminding me of something. Honestly, this is going to be so random, but on Netflix there's a new show called Ripper. It's not a show, it's like have you watched it? Okay, I did not know,
because I want to give it my full attention.
Oh yeah, I watched it like last night, like all the episodes straight through.
I think that's my plan for this evening.
Yeah, you can do a bit of cleaning and watch it, do something else and watch it at the same time.
Oh, I don't know if you can though. Like
you can do both, honestly.
Oh, really?
I did both. So I was watching it and I was like, hold on. I know this guy. He's an actor. He's from Corrie. Turns out Les Battersby from Corrie discovered the body of one of the Yorkshire Rippers victims. Yeah, he was in like an allotment with his friend who likes gardening, and they came across
so
one of the women.
Which part is the rag and which part is the riches there?
No. I just mean that he's like a British celebrity, you know.
Wow.
I mean, not in the sense that like international listeners will appreciate. But in England, he's known, he's recognised by a lot of people. And he's been an actor for decades. Anyway, like the fact that he had this really interesting part of his life that I had no idea. I just knew him as an actor of Coronation Street. And I was like, how are you in this Yorkshire Ripper story somehow? But yeah, people got interesting lives.
I know. I fear that mine is not taking that course, but
no, you just need a PR team. That's all. You just need someone
to spin things.
Yeah,
spin doctor. Well, I don't want to be discovering any dead bodies, so I'm cool. We interrupt this broadcast to remind you, go follow us on Instagram, StyleOverSubstancePod. Shoot us an email, styleoversubstanceP@gmail.com. Find us on YouTube, find us on Twitter. We've got all the links on our Instagram. You know what to do. Right, well, should we move on to fashion?
Yeah, fashion shows. This is another segment of clothes we will never wear to events we will never attend. Part 2 of Spring Summer 21. It's coming like dribs and drabs this year. And this is...
Is this not pre-fall?
Well, the Chanel Métier d'Art calls it pre-fall. But some of the other shows that have only, like, for example, Bottega Veneta, they had their shows in September,
Yeah.
but the images of the show has only just been like recently released. Yeah.
Oh, weird.
So it's technically still spring summer 21. And then Saint Laurent, you know, he came out as like the first designer who was like, fuck a fashion week, like I don't care anymore. I'll just like put out what I want when I want.
When I want.
This is the when he wants time, turns out. So it's a bit of a mix.
Yeah, and to be honest, it's probably, we keep talking about this, but like, it's probably that start of the transition of not going seasonless, but like a company being ready when they're ready, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like Azadina Laya used to do that.
Because actually, the turnaround time, you can manage that with your factories. Some people have it ready like instantly, don't they? Like different brands do different things that I think it'd actually be almost more interesting for there to be a scattering. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's nothing more exciting than this, like, I mean, this time it's not happening as much, but like, you know, when there's that influx of shows like all at once and it's so exciting, but maybe designers get more of their moment if it's...
Yeah, when they stand apart, they get more and press and things, yeah.
So I know you have quite a lot to say about Chanel, so should we start there?
I don't think I have quite a lot to say,
but you implied it last
week. Yeah, I suppose so. Let's start with Chanel.
Okay. Should I tell you my thoughts? Just general thoughts?
Yeah, go on.
So I really liked the location. I thought it was a significant improvement from like the Chanel sign, and like I liked that because it was simple and like a semi clever way of doing something really simple, but it sort of also looked like we've slapped this together quite quickly. And I really loved sort of like, I watched the video of it and I just love how Chanel had multiple people sort of appearing, and I just quite like that rather than the one at a time.
Do you feel like it was more of a relaxed appearance to their usual shows?
I think it was just a little bit more familiar of a Carl show, and like, and don't get me wrong, like this lady, I'm gonna butcher it, Viard.
Yeah, Virginie Viard. Yeah.
She needs to have her own stamp on things. There's no, like, she doesn't have to follow his mold. But I sort of felt like it was more like that. And also it somehow allows you to see sort of looks together and sort of see if they're working together. And I would say like some looked nice together and some didn't. I will say I loved the tweeds. I really thought they were strong. There was one that almost looked Dalmatian-like, and there was a full look on that, and we'll post it on Instagram, and I thought that was a really strong look. The knitwear I loved. There was loads of jewellery. The leather goods looked really good. One thing, this is a personal thing for me, but I think, and actually it'd be really funny, my friend did this recently on her Instagram, but like that we talk about like fashion no-nos for like us, like, you know, those things that kind of make you a little bit repulsed or for whatever reason, like you think is a crime. And for me, that is a leggings, underskirts, dresses or shorts. And that was ever present in the Chanel show. So I really struggled with that.
Okay. I think when you mentioned the location, I think the location was actually one of the most interesting parts about it, because if you look a little bit deeper into like what the location was and its significance, I think it's quite well thought out.
Yeah, so, it inspired the collection from what I understand.
Yeah, so it was located in Chateau de Chénoncier, I think that's how you pronounce it. And this, I believe, was not Virginie's like first choice. But when she went to look at this, essentially this castle, which is known for being quite intimate, it was quite similar and reflective of Coco Chanel's own famous house in the south of France. So she kind of saw those parallels. And this castle was known as the Chateau de Femme, which is like the castle of women. And it was famous for its really influential women who kind of helped shape this castle's notoriety, basically. So I think King Henry II's mistress and her like arch nemesis, Catherine de' Medici, who like the Medici in history is like a very powerful family in Europe. So they both kind of put their stamp on this castle. And so I think it's a nod to like the relevance of women in this case, which I thought was really interesting. And one of the Medici symbols is this interlocking sea. And they found these motifs and these like double C's in the castle. And of course, obviously, Chanel, their symbol is the double C. So it was like...
And not to be confused with the Charles Camilla double C.
No, because we wouldn't confuse the two.
Do you know what I'm referring to?
They both, like, every time you get married, you get your own...
No, so
scribble.
when Princess Diana and Charles got married, on his honeymoon, he was wearing cufflinks with interlocking C's.
Yes, yeah.
To symbolise his love for Camilla.
Yeah, that's true.
I can't help but think maybe she just bought him Chanel cufflinks, but...
No, darling.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that was quite a cool part of the show. And as you said before, like, the fact that it was implied that the show was only performed for the audience of one, who is what's her name? Her, the actress. No. Actress in Twilight.
Oh, Kirsten Stewart or
There
Kristen Stewart.
Kristen Stewart, yeah. It made it like more homely and intimate, and that's supposed to be the idea of this like castle, which is actually quite small for castle's sakes. Yeah, let's go into the leggings, because when I saw some comments online, people had a real issue with these leggings.
Well, they didn't even... Some of them looked premium. Some of them looked like they could have been from Primark.
I'm going to say
I don't know how leggings
didn't bother me.
Look premium, but I do have a real problem.
They didn't bother me. You know what it was? Remember back in the day when we were at school, we used to wear skirts and leggings and pumps?
No, I really tried not to.
I know.
I mean, I definitely did for a bit, but I don't think it's acceptable.
That was a part of early 2000s fashion that people just like to forget.
Yeah.
And I think...
Long may it stay that way.
It was also quite 80s in that sense. The leggings that comes to the ankle with the ballet pumps or the like Mary Janes.
Those gold glittery ballet pumps were beautiful, and I'm going to make it my life goal to get a pair. So
that's going to add to your long list of Chanel things that you want.
Yeah.
I do like the shoes. I do, and I did like the leggings for some reason. I wouldn't be wearing them, but I quite liked it. I think what differs between Viard and oh my god, Carl is that he, for every show, had a new theme, and it was a whole new world. For her, she has this like, she draws on like these, reminds me of the Tudors, that sort of like 1500s Europe aesthetic. That's her thing, and that's what I see in her collections, and I quite like it. I quite like the jewelry goes with that theme.
I really liked the presence of the jewelry. I actually I haven't really noticed it in other shows, and I don't know if I wasn't looking for it but I just felt like all of the belts were jewelry. Like it was costume belts, weren't they? Like I just think it was, there was I almost wondered if you know, we always say accessories are the money maker. If it was like, babe, push these accessories.
Yeah. And Chanel costume jewelry is just extortionate for the fact that it's costume jewelry.
Yeah. But yeah, one of my favorite looks, I don't know if it will stand out to you, but it was like a camel cardi and potentially like a little bralette. You know how that's cool to have like a matching top and cardi these days. But then
Very
it had
Jacquemus.
this black sort of sheer like mesh skirt with it. So it was like a really contrasting textures and stuff like that. But it was just a really cool, chic, very Viard rather than Carl look. It was quite modern and very her. And I really liked it. And I would say the evening wear was a little lackluster for me. Some were just kind of looked like they didn't fit the model, so I don't know if there was something there.
And I think that's an interesting point, because for me, when I think of Chanel, I don't think of evening wear. I don't think of ball gowns. I don't think of, you know, these highly dressed up evening looks. I think of, I'm a rich woman who likes to wear fancy things during the day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if I'm going to buy a Chanel jacket, it's not because I'm going to wear it to, you might wear it to a wedding, but you're not going to wear it to a black tux event. You're wearing all this stuff on a day-to-day basis. Does that make sense? So yeah, it wasn't really, those sorts of looks is not what reminds me of Chanel at all. But I did like the checkerboard. That was like ever present, and the fact that everything with the collection was largely
and they were
black
walking
and
on
white.
a checkerboard as well.
Yeah. So I did like it. I do like her aesthetic overall. I mean, I get the thing about the leggings, even though it didn't bother me.
It's just a personal preference.
I would say that I think, or actually a question to you, do you think they're trying to target a younger audience?
I don't know. Because actually Chanel's always sort of had quite young models and all of that. And actually there was one model they had that was a slightly older lady, and she was beautiful, wearing this sort of black sparkling tweed. I think they sort of cover all ages really, because the tweed is quite an old-fashioned thing. Like it's that thing that people get because it's Chanel, but really it's not something like me. I don't own anything really tweed, but I'd probably own it if it was Chanel. Like that's what they've done really well, and it's quite old fashioned. And then I do think their style of their sort of evening dresses is more along that style.
McQueen next. Only because I think that this was my favourite overall presentation.
You talk about the men's one.
It was the one where it was like this dystopian video.
I don't know. I haven't seen the video. Basically, what I saw on Vogue it was just 14 looks.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Because, you know, because actually the Alexander McQueen, I think, is maybe the men's is possibly my favourite as well. So that's quite funny.
Yeah, we are on the same page. So Alexander McQueen, presentation-wise, was my favourite, in that, you know, at the beginning of the year, it was all about, to some extent, kind of better days will come and we're all in this together sort of sentiment. And a lot also was about going back in time, either like returning to the home like we saw with Fendi, or it was about brands were coming out, repurposing old designs of the past, but reintroducing them as like a homage to the past, or like sticking to their classics. I think if you didn't see the video, but the Alexander McQueen video, which featured both menswear and women's wear, and the women's wear, especially the suits, were very much based off the men's suits. They were pretty much identical, I think. There was this video of what was this dystopic a dystopian London, and there were these like feral survivors who were living under the bridge on the embankment, like the muddy embankment of the River Thames. And they were there and they had like blankets out and they were just like living in the shadows of like this dystopian London. And they were like, some of the women had these wearing these big McQueen dresses, and they were like wading through the waters of this river and stuff. And I was like, we all know that McQueen is known for dark imagery. And I was like, that is how you do it, because McQueen is about the darkness in life and about the savagery and all of that.
And actually the clothing wasn't that dark. I think it was obviously like the vision behind it was, but the execution wasn't like overly dark.
Yeah. So that's the thing. I felt like they were able to keep their identity. They're not about to pretend like they're bright and sunny to make people feel better. They're like, this is our moment to be as dark as we want to be.
You finally have all joined us.
Yeah. And it's funny you say about the clothing, because when you look at the clothing at face value, it isn't dark, really. But I think that they've used like fabric cut-offs and like stuff that usually wouldn't have been used. They've kind of repurposed, put together. And so what you see is like repurposed fabric basically, and cut-offs and things to make this collection. And I think it's like really, I don't know, it's the looks are more like utilitarian more than they are about delicate embroidery and stuff that we've seen Sarah Burton do before.
Yeah, I think that the looks were really, I don't want to say simple, because I don't mean simple in a negative way, because actually there's nothing simple about the McQueen tailoring.
Exactly.
Their tailoring is exquisite, but it was almost like it looked like a uniform. It looked like it just looked, I don't know, and it just because they tailor so well. And on the men's looks, they did like this hybrid tailoring where there was like what would be like normally a formal overcoat, but with the volume of a trench coat at the bottom, or like they did this hybrid puffer jacket meets trench coat, and it's just like, and some of it's a bit unusual and a bit kooky, but like of course like it's McQueen, but like the way they've executed it and just the way it's been styled just kind of looked really, really normal and just really, really clean and really well done. I really liked the paneling, like you said, like it almost, if they were reusing fabric or making use of some spare fabrics from previous collections, there was some paneling, and they just, it was almost, I don't know, it was great. I loved it.
I agree. Like it was really sleek, clean, but cool pieces, like the men's trench in that like taupe color, and it's got these extra kind of panels that come out at the side. I thought it's just really a really clean collection. And I think it's, when people say like collections have to be a reflection of society and like all that stuff, sometimes you look at a collection, you're like, I don't know what the fuck you're on about. But I think with this, it made sense. It was like, I could wear that day in, day out, for years to come. The dresses were made out of what seemed to be like voile or like unfrayed frayed cotton or something like that. Really like simple, plain fabrics, but they were obviously, as you said, tailored like beautifully. But it did look like, you know, when you watch those old films of like Victorian London and they have these big full skirts,
almost like funereal in some aspects.
To our 2020 perspective, it's like, oh my god, it's this big puffy dress, but this is like the stuff that like normal men and women used to wear with boots, and they used to trudge through dirty London, you know, in the 1800s sort of thing. And the suits I would kill for one of these one of these McQueen suits in navy. I really like the collection, and I think it's like it's a reflection of what's going on now more than I've seen anyone else really do.
Awesome. I don't know if you saw the Dior, I won't even call it a show, presentation.
Okay.
I would say this is one of the biggest disappointments that I've seen.
Is this Dior men's?
No, this was like a pre-fall.
Okay.
And it basically was a bunch of Polaroids. I think there were like 120 odd sort of like slideshow images to like go through on Vogue, which is, to be, for me, far too many. And basically some Polaroids would be a close-up of a jacket, some would be sort of an entire look, but like the execution of these, it's like they were scanned on an A4 page and that's how it looks, and it's probably intentional, but for me Dior's incredible. I just feel like it didn't show off. Like the collection actually looks nice. There's loads of leopard print. It looks really fun and playful. There's this amazing like monogram rain jacket that I feel like is going to take like Instagram by storm. Like it's like a clear rain mac with the monogram on it.
Oh yeah.
And all of that stuff. And it's this real mix of sort of much more relaxed clothing, much more sort of like potentially street, but in a Dior way, mixed with sort of some classic Dior. But I feel like the presentation of it, I'm just not here for it.
Yeah, I think from my point of view, the presentation was far more editorial. Like I liked it. I actually liked the imagery, but in a magazine.
Yeah.
Not as like a
Not
chance
as
for
a
me
way,
to suss out the whole collection, you know?
It was quite hard to get an overall feel of the collection.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a way, I'm not being funny, but it could be a way of just like masking up the fact that it's the same old same. You know, like there's a silver metallic like chrome jumpsuit, but we've seen the jumpsuit already. It's just we've seen the headscarves before. That's nothing revolutionary.
I quite liked the leather beret.
But we've seen that before. I swear one of her first collections, she had the beret, and then like Beyonce when she had her Super Bowl performance. It was that sort of period of time. The leopard print, I like leopard print.
Yeah, I really like it.
Am I going to buy a Dior leopard print tracksuit?
If I was going to buy a leopard print, you know where I'd buy it from? D&G.
Oh, yes. Even though they are raging racists, but but yeah, they do leopard print quite well.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like become their thing, hasn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah,
so I thought you were going to say juicy couture at some point. I was waiting for like a
squeeze me.
You're better than that, right?
Yes. Speaking of leopard print, one of my favorite. It's a presentation of two halves for me. Was the Moschino. Who knows?
It's Moschino.
I know, but I can't bring myself to say that. For me, it's like naturally Moschino, if that makes sense.
Oh, okay, I get you.
You know, like it's like I say Nike, but if someone tells me it's Nike, I'm still going to say Nike.
I think it's just the British way. Like I used to say Moschino, but then I went to work for a certain company and we were like, no, you have to say it correctly. Now it's just normal to me. But yeah, Brits,
I'll butcher it. Don't you worry. So first of all, the way they photoed it was on this like grey mottled, like sort of, I don't know if your family ever had a photo shoot back in the day, but it looks like the backdrop for that. Like I'm certain we've got a photo in my family home with this grey, like mottled background. And like it's intentional. It's like, I think it's meant to look dated. It's meant to look, Moschino is always somewhat 80s inspired and all of that. So I thought that was really funny, like, and a bit like playful. The first few looks I was obsessed with. There was loads of paneling. It was kind of freaky, but kind of cool. And there was like this there's like this dress where it's like half a blazer dress and half like a leopard print dress. And then like there's this layered like sort of trench coat where on top it's a statement blazer, then it goes into a biker, then it goes into a trench coat. But then the looks just suddenly become trash.
Yeah.
Like, just it suddenly gets all machinified with the teddy bear baroque print on everything. And just, I thought that was kind of edgy and really funky and playful. And then it just went into like the branded machino crap. And but the first few looks, I actually, that coat, I actually think is really cool. I mean, I'd never wear it, but I think it's a cool idea, the paneling, and we've seen paneling quite a lot all over the place. But yeah,
this is not my favorite Moschino. I think it reminds me too much of Guess. Do you know Guess?
Yeah.
Like long legs, boofy hair, and like big tits, dare I say it. But it's kind of given me that kind of like skinny jean and tight top. I don't know, it's just not my favorite, to be honest. I think Moschino does really well. The thing is kind of like a trashy theme, and I respect that. And the backdrop thing I do like. It is supposed to be reminiscent of this like 90s family photo or like school portrait or something. But yeah, I liked how they used the same model. I just thought that was a cute touch. And she did all of the looks. But
doesn't it just turn trash?
But isn't that Moschino?
Yeah, but I just thought those first few looks were just really like just different. I don't know. It just I thought it was a different tone, and then it just went into like, oh no, we're just going back to what we normally do.
Yeah.
Like we designed a few things, but they're actually no, forget it.
But I understand what you mean. They just reverted back to some looks that they've already done, but in a sense, these patchwork and like re-stitched together looks to me weren't that revolutionary or different or interesting. Not for me, really. Saint Laurent, I like their stuff, but is not necessarily like the most interesting to talk about. But for this, I thought they kept like this really 60s aesthetic, which was like the heyday of YSL, like the beginning of when Saint Laurent kind of, headed up his own fashion house and stuff. And so they've like made a nod to that as like plunging necklines, jumpsuits, like those mini dresses that were massive in the 60s with those like mandarin collars that come up, that stand up. I thought that was really cool because Bottega's like this collection that came out before, but we are only now seeing it now. It was like a nod to like the 60s and 70s of like chunky knit and this idea of like going back into time. And I think at a time where people are buying more into secondhand, more into vintage, I thought it was just an interesting approach in that fashion houses are probably going to look back to old collections and old pieces that they've brought out before, old trends to capture that like resurgence of vintage fashion. But I thought YSL was like, I would definitely wear a lot of the stuff that they came out. Also, like they had their models in sheer tights and then lace knickers on top of it and wearing heels. And I thought it was very like Playboy bunny 1960s vibe, but also, of course, a bit rock and roll, like with velvets and things like that. So I was actually kind of pleasantly surprised about Saint Laurent. I would want to like buy into that their style
Yeah,
more
I
so.
feel like they are really really trying to nail. I think they sort of have really segued them into like the rock chic sort of, I don't know, that's what they've made as their thing, their stamp, which I actually think they're really good at.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think, yeah, like, and also like it's just more wearable. I don't know if this was like, they've always had this sort of like rock and roll, like more kind of, I don't even know what the word is, but not like super feminine glamour. Like they probably,
Yeah.
like when I think of even like 90s, like YSL, I think of like, yeah, it might be gold sequined, but like just a big blazer dress, or like, I don't know. I just always
Yeah,
think,
well, because YSL, he like pioneered like the smoking jacket. So
yeah, sort of
tuxedos
like,
and all
but
of that
men's
has,
wear for women as
yeah.
well. Like, I think that they, and like women's tailoring, I think they were probably like, you know, quite at the front of a women's, like a women's suit, like a tuxedo. So yeah, I think they just really nailed that. And like it's one of the few collections that you look at and you go, I could imagine wearing that.
Yeah, 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 exactly.
Because all the rest of it seems so unattainable for a lifestyle that really we don't even know if anyone leads, but we imagine they do. And I
Yeah.
actually love the tights. I think the tights look really, really good with it.
I mean, they've recently had a lot of backlash in regards to the size of their models. And I will say that they do use models who, in some cases, look painfully thin. So it'd be nice to just,
I actually feel like Chanel's models for the first time, and like don't get me wrong, they're slim, okay, but they weren't slim. Like some of them were walking, and they had like they just weren't stick insects, and I appreciated seeing that. I don't know if
yeah.
you've seen the film Prom, or was it The Prom, that's just come out on Netflix with James Corden, Meryl Streep, and Nicole Kidman.
No, I haven't seen it.
But basically, you know how like it's a musical, and all of these musicals tend to have obviously backing dancers and all of this stuff for like the dance numbers. They clearly made a conscious effort to have real sizes, like, and yes, of course there are people who are naturally slim or whatever, but it wasn't the stereotypical, all of the dancers being like a size 6 or whatever it is. They were just like had more athletic builds or whatever it was. They just looked a bit more normal, and I really appreciated it.
Yeah. I think where Chanel approaches it is they always have very young models,
Yeah.
and then Saint Laurent approaches it from a rock and roll
Yeah.
lifestyle.
Like basically your breakfast is
Yeah,
like
cigarettes.
cigarettes and maybe some booze to
Yeah, like hair of the dog sort of
yeah.
thing, or like a really strong espresso, because obviously that's like the fashion lifestyle. That is where they, I don't know, I think it's, if they could just tip the balance into just a bit healthier sizes, it wouldn't be so uncomfortable